What's going on, everyone? This is Luke from South Beach Sports, and in today's video I'm going to discuss the needs that the Miami Heat must fill this offseason. If you like this video and if you enjoy content like this, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that post notification bell so you do not miss a single video. Also, go ahead and comment down below what you think is the Heat's biggest need leading into this offseason. So what this video is going to be about is I'm going to list the 3 biggest needs that the Heat need to address, and I'm going to talk about some players that could fill this need not only in the free agent pool but also in the trade market. So the first need I want to discuss today is the need for a stretch forward / stretch center next to Bam Adebayo. We've seen the Heat both alternate with a stretch forward and a stretch big. In the beginning of that 2019 and 2020 season, the Heat had a center at Leonard starting, and at the trade deadline, they traded for a stretch forward in Jay Crowder. We saw the Heat this season opt for a stretch big, you could say, in Kelly Olynyk in the beginning of the season, and the Heat again traded for a stretch forward in Trevor Ariza. I personally prefer when Bam Adebayo was played at power forward. I really don't love him at the center position just because of his height. He's 6'9", so he's a little undersized for the 5 spot. I think the Heat could go either way with this as far as a stretch forward or a stretch big. In the free agent pool, there are some cheap options such as Markieff Morris, who I've talked about in previous videos, Nick Batum, and Torrey Craig. My personal favorite out of these 3 cheap options would probably be either Morris or Batum. Batum obviously has played a very good season this past year with the Clippers. He's a good shooter, he's a versatile defender, and he's definitely a veteran presence in that locker room. Also, you have Markieff Morris, who, like I said before, is an enforcer. He's a versatile defender, he's a solid corner shooter, and he would definitely bring a lot of what Jay Crowder brought in that 2019 and 2020 season. Moving on to those mid-tier options in the free agent market, you have both PJ Tucker and Lauri Markkanen, who would expect to receive contracts of around 12 to 18 million. I think Tucker will probably receive a short-term deal of 1 to 2 years. And while Lauri Markkanen, on the other hand, is looking for a longer-term deal as he is younger. Personally, I'm not the biggest Lauri Markkanen fan. He's not a good defender at all. When put next to Bam, I don't think you necessarily need an amazing defender. But Markkanen was just a complete defensive liability this past season on the Bulls. And offensively wise, yes, he would space the floor, but that's really about it. You also have PJ Tucker, who I am a huge fan of. I'm not sure if I would pay him $13 million, but I am a huge fan of Tucker. He really fits that centralized role of a versatile defender who could lock up your best player. And he's also on offense, he will just shoot corner threes, which is just exactly what you need him for. He's also a very tough rebounder, he's an enforcer, and like I said earlier with Batum, he's also a very, very good presence in the locker room. As for your high-end option, you have John Collins, who is looking to receive a max contract of 4 years and $125.9 million this offseason. He left a deal with the Hawks on the table that was worth $90 million, so he's obviously looking for that max deal. While I do like Collins, I think he's a very, very good offensive rebounder. He had some key offensive rebounds in the playoffs, and he would be a very terrific floor spacer next to Bam. I do not think he's worth a max contract. The last 2 guys I want to talk about are some of the under-the-radar options. The first guy I want to talk about is Bobby Portis, who is obviously just performing out of his mind right now on the Bucks. If he declines his player option for next season, which is worth $3.75 million, then the Heat should pursue Portis immediately because he would be a perfect fit both on the offensive and defensive end next to Bam. On the offensive end, he would be a terrific floor spacer and shooter. He shot 46% from 3 this past season with the Bucks, so that's obviously a great fit next to Bam. On the defensive end, he really fits this switch-heavy look of the Heat. He's versatile enough to switch on guards, and that's something that I've seen from him this playoff run, which I've been very impressed with. This last option is contingent on if the Blazers decide to just rebuild. If they trade away Damien Lillard, if they trade away CJ McCollum, then they can definitely trade away Robert Covington as well. And if Covington is on the trade market, then the Heat should pursue him immediately. Covington would be a terrific floor spacer next to Bam as a stretch forward, and more importantly, he would just be a terrific defender who can lock up the other team's best player. Moving on to the second need that the Heat need to address this offseason, I have the need for a true point guard. The Heat really lacked this last year as they needed a floor general to really start the offense. They relied way too much on dribble handoffs, and also I think a true point guard could definitely take some of the load off of Jimmy Butler, as well as help the development of Bam Adebayo. So I've separated these guys into 4 categories. The first category that I want to address is the cheap category, and I have Ish Smith. Smith was the backup point guard last year in Washington, and while I wouldn't like to see Smith as a starter for Miami, I definitely think he could log good minutes as a bench player. He's a good playmaker, he's a solid leader as a veteran, and if the Heat could get Smith for the right price, I definitely think they should pursue him. So the next category I want to talk about is the mid-tier category, and I have two players in this area. I have Cam Payne, who has just exploded on the spotlight with the Suns this playoff run, and TJ Mcconnell. With Payne, he could expect a contract of $8 to $12 million from what I've heard, and honestly, I wouldn't be the biggest fan of Cam Payne. I don't think he's necessarily a great floor general, which is what the Heat need super badly, and also I would be a little cautious to sign Payne. He really hasn't shown that he could play at this level consistently, and I think his buzzing name could allow him to receive a contract that's a little bit more than what he's actually worth. For the second name in this mid-tier category, I have TJ Mcconnell. Like Cam Payne, Mcconnell should expect to receive a contract of around $8 to $12 million a year. I like Mcconnell a lot. I really like his perimeter defense. He averaged 1.9 steals per game last year, which was second in the NBA. And he's just a very, very pesky player. On offense, he's a good passer, and he can get in the lane and get into his little 6-foot, 7-foot mid-range jump shot that he's so famous for. And I think for the right price, the Heat should definitely look into signing McConnell. So in the next category of playmakers, I have the upper mid-tier guys in Lonzo Ball and Mike Conley. With Lonzo Ball, I really haven't heard much about him being a potential target for the Heat. I've heard a lot more about his potential in signing with the Chicago Bulls instead. Ball has turned into a terrific three-point shooter with the Pelicans. He's always been a good passer, he's always been a good defender, but it's really interesting to see how his three-point shot has developed so far in his young NBA career. With Mike Conley, I would be very, very happy with signing him to a short-term deal. Conley was obviously a huge part of the Jazz team from this past year that was obviously the #1 seed. The Jazz really missed Mike Conley in the Clippers series, and he would definitely be a terrific veteran player for that Heat squad, and I think he would continue to develop Bam Adebayo as he would be a terrific pick-and-roll ball handler. For the high-tier guys, which should expect to receive a contract of at least $25 to $30 million a year, I have Chris Paul and Kyle Lowry. I'm not going to discuss Lowry that much as I just made a video about him. I'll link that in the description below. But obviously I think Lowry would be a great signing for the Heat, and it feels very inevitable that the Heat might end up signing him. I also have Chris Paul, who might decline his player option worth $39 million in favor of a longer-term deal. I haven't heard much about Chris Paul being a potential target for the Heat, but if he does decline his player option, that's definitely a name to watch. So the last need that the Heat need to address this offseason is pretty simple: a scorer. They just need a scorer, and there are a lot of high-tier options that I think are very unrealistic, and there are some mid-tier options that I think could get the job done for this role. For the high-tier guys, let's just get the unrealistic options out the way. Kawhi Leonard, I mean, we've heard some Kawhi Leonard to the Heat rumors and about how Kawhi Leonard would have chosen Jimmy Butler over Paul George as his running mate in LA, but at the end of the day, I think it's very, very unlikely that Leonard leaves the Clippers. He's going to be rehabbing there. He's bought a house in LA. He's from that area, so I think it's very unlikely for him to leave LA to go all the way across the country to Miami. Just to touch up on the other unrealistic options out there, we have Damien Lillard, who has not formally requested a trade from Portland, but if he does, the Heat would have to give up Bam Adebayo in a potential trade, and I do not think they will end up doing that. We also have Bradley Beal and Zach Levine, who have just been names that we've heard around Heat circles for a while now. I don't think they're going anywhere. I mean, maybe Beal could be traded somewhere. I don't really think he'll end up moving away from Washington this offseason, especially after the run they had where they were obviously a lottery team for much of the season and they made a run with Westbrook to the 8th seed or to the play-in games. I think what the Wizards will end up doing is building a team or trying to build a squad around Westbrook and Beal and seeing where that gets them. I still think there are a couple names that the Heat could obtain that qualify as a scoring whale per se. One of those options has been a rumor for the Heat for the past couple weeks, and that's Colin Sexton. I've made numerous videos about him. We've also heard about Brandon Ingram if, New Orleans decides to move on from Ingram in order to really just build a team centered around Zion Williamson. Then the Heat could definitely pursue that. We also have another name out there in CJ McCollum, who, if the Blazers decide to blow it up, he could definitely become a trade option for the Heat. We also have DeMar DeRozan, who would be a high-level option. I think DeRozan is very skilled. He can create his own shot, but that floor spacing with Butler, Bam, and DeRozan would just be terrible. We also have a mid-tier option in Tim Hardaway, who I have made a video about in the past. I think Hardaway is definitely a guy who can create his own shot, but I'm really not sure how much of an upgrade he is over a guy like Tyler Hero. So I'm at the end of the video and I just realized that I did miss a couple of guys for these categories, and it's really late at night right now, so I'm not going to just remake the whole video. The guys that I forgot about were Malcolm Brogdon for the point guard category, who I would love a lot. We also have Miles Turner from the same Pacers team for the stretch big / stretch forward category. Both these guys are on the Pacers, and it doesn't look right now like the Pacers are going to blow it up, as they just hired a win-now coach in Rick Carlisle, so I would not expect the Pacers to trade either Brogdon or Turner this offseason. Last two guys I want to mention real quick, Ben Simmons, who I don't think the Heat would trade for in the first place, as supposedly he did not have the greatest of connections with Jimmy Butler, and that spacing with Simmons, Bam, and Butler would just be horrible. Last guy is Kemba Walker. I don't think the Heat would pursue Walker at all. He is not really that much of a floor general at point guard, and he's proved his inconsistencies as a scorer over the course of the past couple of years. So that's going to be it for today, guys. If you enjoyed the video and if you enjoy content like this, like I said, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on that post notification bell. Also, go ahead and comment down below what are your thoughts on some of the guys that I mentioned for these needs, and what you think is the biggest need of the Heat that they need to address this offseason. With that being said, I will catch you later.